Hello everybody, I'm Nick, and in this video I'm going to show you how finally in .NET 8 Microsoft fixes or completes the concept of a background task, also known as a background service or as a hosted service. Now if you don't know what a hosted service is or a background service is, I do have a video on it. I will explain however what it is in this video, but in this video we're going to focus into what is coming in .NET 8, which I and many people I've worked with were really missing. If you want to do any simple or even complicated background processing in your .NET application, then that concept is for you. If you like that type of content and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. And for more training, check out my courses on dometrain.com. Now, before I move on, I'd like to let you know that we just launched a brand new course on Dometrain called Getting Started with Solution Architecture. And that course is made by James Eastham. Like I have said in the past, I only want to make courses myself on topics I am an absolute expert on. And on this, I'm not as good as James. So I asked him to come over and author that course for us. James is a senior solution architect for AWS. So his knowledge on the subject and his position in the biggest cloud provider in the world makes him the perfect educator for something like this. The course is fantastic. I've taken it myself and I cannot stress enough how good the quality of that course is. I have said it in the past and I will say it again, getting very good in solution architecture and understanding the subject will really elevate you as a software engineer more than becoming better at the code itself, because after some point you're gonna plateau. But solution architecture doesn't really have a limit, and the moment you understand when to choose the right tool for the right job, you're going to be way more valuable into your company and your team. Now, to celebrate the launch, I want to offer the first 400 of you a 15% discount code. So you can use the code you see now on your screen and claim a 15% discount at checkout. Trust me, this goes really, really fast. So if you want to get the course, get it sooner than later. Now, back to the video. All right, I'm sure to have here. I have a simple .NET 8 API, but it doesn't really have anything. It is just a web application, and I'm going to use it as a skeleton to show you what was added and really what a hosted service is. So up until .NET 7, we really had two ways of doing background stuff in our .NET application, whether that's an API or just a normal .NET app. And that is by using either a hosted service or a background service. Now, a background service is pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to say example BG service over here, and I'm going to extend the background service class. And if I do that and I implement the one method in here, I have this execute async method, which I can turn into an async task, and then I can do anything I want here. And what most people do with this is that they say while the cancellation token is not cancellation requested, so basically while the application is still running, then do something, and also maybe I'll wait for some delay, and so on. So if I wanted to have something very simple here, I could just do console.writeLine ping, and I'm going to sort the modifiers. And in order for this to actually be picked up by .NET and used, I have to go into the program.cs and I have to say builder.services.add hosted service, and I'm gonna say example BG service. And now if I go ahead and I just run this application, then what you're going to see is the application would start, and after it starts, I'm going to get a ping every second. Very self-explanatory, and this will just keep working in the background. Now, of course, if I was not awaiting anything, and if I was not in a loop and I just did that, then what you might expect will happen. You're only gonna see one ping, and then we're out of that method, and so on. So nothing really happens in the background. It will just run as the application is starting, and that is it. So that is the background service, which I think is the most used one as well. But we also have another thing. We have an example service over here, and this will implement the IHosted service. And that actually has two methods, the start async and the stop async. As the name implies, one will be triggered on the start of the application and one will be triggered at the, stopping of the application. So if I turn this into async methods, then I can put any code I wanted here. I'm going to actually inject a private read-only iLogger of that type, and I'm going to use that to just print something into the console. So I'm going to say, for example, log information, and then start async here, and then log information, stop async. So if I just leave it as it is, and I go ahead and I register it in my program.cs, then exactly what you think might happen will happen. So in the beginning of the application, I'm going to get the start async before the whole application actually starts. So first, that thing will be triggered, and then I'm going to have the application running. And when I say stop the application, then the stop async will be triggered and the application will exit. And that is great, that's fine. You can have something that starts, then does something in there after it starts, and then it stops. However, we have a bit of an issue here. Let's say you have some sort of asynchronous work you want to do during start or stop. Let's say that this asynchronous work takes some time. Now, ideally, you don't want to have something that does take a lot of time in these type of situations, and you're going to see why. But let's see if something does really take some time. And I'm going to say await.task.delay, and I'm going to have 20 seconds here. So let's add that. Watch what happens. If I just say run, then we're going to stay here for a solid 20 seconds looking at this, because the start method of each individual hosted service, by the way, will be awaited synchronously. It's not synchronous, it's still awaited asynchronously, but it has to finish, the whole awaiting process has to finish before we move on into running the application. And for many people, that's problematic because, well, you might not need that thing to actually start during that time immediately. You could just afford for that to start in 30 seconds and so on, but you still want your application to immediately start. So you didn't really have an option. What I've seen people do is they were wrapping things into tasks and task.runs and so on, and that is easy to mess up as well. So that is one of the things that we're finally getting fixed in .NET 8. Now, the way this is fixed is actually very simple. Now in the service configuration, I can say builder.services.configure, and I can configure the host options, which, by the way, you can configure for other things in the .NET application. For example, if I just show you some options, you have things like shutdown timeouts or startup timeouts. So if the application is taking a long time to start or stop, then you can configure a timeout and this will just kill it. Or you can have things like background service exception behavior. So if you have an exception there, then how will your application react? Do we just kill it? Do we do something else? In fact, if I show you the options, you're going to get the ignore and you're going to get the stop host. So those are a few options you might have here, but you also have two new ones now, which is the services start concurrently and services stop concurrently. By default, those are false, but I can now go ahead and I can set those to true. So if I do that, even if I have first many services, but many services that do some longer waiting on the start method over here, like 20 seconds, I no longer have to wait. In fact, I'm going to just move this start async below and turn this into 10 seconds just to showcase the point. And then I'm going to say run. As you're going to see, the application will start immediately. And that task has now started in the background concurrently, and every other task I have will also start concurrently because they're now wrapped in a special task.run approach that doesn't block your application from starting or stopping for that matter. So that is one of the things we didn't have, and now we have in .NET 8. Now, what is the other one? Well, the other one is that if we go back to this hosted service, you don't really have much control in what happens. It's not really granular control into what happens. You have a start async, which is triggered when the application is starting, and a stop async, which is triggered when the application is stopping. But what if you want more control? Well, if you want more control, in .NET 8, we get a brand new IHostedLifecycleService. And with that interface, we don't only have the start async and stop async, but we also have the started async when something has started, the starting async when something is in the process of starting, the stopped async, and the stopping async. So we're going to go ahead and implement those. And I'm going to just quickly print in the console just the name of each method so you can see exactly what is going on. So I'm going to say return task.completed task over here. And I'm just very quickly going to implement all of them off camera so you don't have to see me do the same thing 15 times. So just to recap, now we have start, stop, started, starting, stopped, and stopping. And nothing changes on the registration front. So this is still an add hosted service call. So all I want to do now is just say run, and watch what happens. First, we have the starting async. So the application is in the process of starting. Then we have the call to the start async. So now it will start. Then you have the started, so everything about it has completed. And when I press the stop button, you're going to see the stopping, stop, and stopped. So that is the order: ing, starting, stop or start, and then stopped or started. I know it's going to be a bit confusing because you could assume a different order, but the way I think of it is ing, nothing, and then ED, and that's how I rationalize the flow. And if you work with middleware in the past in MVC, you would know that they use the sort of the same naming approach for how filters and middleware is executed. The start and stop concurrently stuff are very important in my opinion, because you sort of had to compromise before and try to hack your way around doing the exact same thing, but using a background service that you didn't necessarily need. So now you no longer need that, and more granular control over here with each individual method also gives you more power to do more fancy things with different levels of the application startup process. But now I want to know from you, have you used background services before or hosted services like that? And have you encountered that issue? Because that iHosted service blocking thing I've encountered so many times in the past, and I just did not understand why it was happening. So leave a comment down below and let me know. Well, that's all I have for you for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, keep coding.